Hi. Alright, so here's part 2 of episode 9.
He says Avery shoots her in the head 3 times. There's evidence of 2 bullet wounds in the cremains of Halbach's skull. He says Avery shoots her in the left side of the head. One of those bullet wounds is in the left side of Halbach's skull.
Wow. If you had to pick, he's got 4 options. And also, he said, I think. So, so what? He happened to pick the right one? Big deal. That doesn't prove anything. If he would have said the right side, they would have said, are you sure about that, Brendan? Are you sure? I don't know, it could have been the left side. I mean, come on, as much as they have, are you sure about that, Brendan? Come on now, be honest. They would have pushed him to say the right side that they wanted him to say until he said the right one.
Time and again, Dassey's statements, which he makes without any coercing or coaxing other than to be asked, match up with the available physical evidence. He says he and Avery load Halbach's body in the back of her car. Her blood is found in the back of her car.
Okay. How many times did they have to ask him about what happened? How many times did he change that? When they found out that there was blood in the back of her car that was hers, what did they need to do? They needed to get him to put her there. How did they get him to put her there? They asked him. He didn't just freely offer that information. And you've got to watch the interrogations. Apparently, you have not done that because they ask him specifically, how did she end up in the back? When did you put her in the back? Things like that. I'm not even going to try to quote that right now, but their questions were very leading to get him to say, yeah, we put her in the back of the car.
He says Avery throws her camera and cell phone in the fire with her body. Charred remains of her camera and cell phone, as well as her personal digital assistant, are found in the burn pit.
Again, how did he get that information? They asked him, what did you do with all those things? They asked him, did you put them in the burn barrel? What did you put in the burn barrel? Things like that. Those things also were all over the media. All this information that Brendan had was, a lot of it was in the media. So, it's not very hard for an imagination to be able to put things together. When you're feeding them information, the media has also given you information. He can put all these things together. Like I said, he's not dumb. He can figure it out. He can figure out what they're trying to get at and what they want him to say. That does not mean that he was there, because he gets so many things wrong that cannot be backed up by physical evidence, by any evidence. The stories that he's given, if anything, are completely proven to be impossible, except for the specific information that they want him to say, to tie a piece of evidence like blood in the back of the car with, yeah, we put her in the back of the car. That's it.
He says Avery throws tires on the fire. The cremains of the camera, cell phone, and personal digital assistant are found intertwined with steel belts from those tires.
Okay. I read a report on how many tires it would take, and I know I've mentioned this in another video because this guy keeps saying the same thing. Tires, it would take 40 tires, 40, okay, not 2, 40 tires to create the amount of heat and provide the amount of fuel to keep the fire hot enough, burning long enough to cremate a body to that condition. 1,500 gallons of gasoline. Okay, and I know that they've got a salvage yard, but I'm pretty sure that they did not throw 40 tires on that burn pit. Sorry. They would have found evidence of 40 tires being burned. There were 2. they would have also had someone be able to tell, the fire investigator or whatever, be able to tell that 1,500 pounds of gasoline was used as accelerant to keep that fire going. There would be residue, there would be evidence of all of this.
What do you do after you put her on the fire?
We put the tires on there and the branches.
Where'd that stuff come from?
He had it there already.
He did. Okay.
Okay. Brennan just said, where did he have that stuff? The tires and the branches. He had it there already, is what he just said. In another one of Brendan's interviews or interrogations, he says that he comes over with the golf cart and they go driving around the yard picking up van seats and tires and branches and a cabinet, things like that, to burn in the bonfire. So which is it? Did Stephen already have all that stuff there, or did Brendan help him go and gather those things with the golf cart? Two different stories. You can't say Brendan's stories are facts, that they're correct, that the evidence backs them up, because he's given you two completely different stories. And, you know, that's very consistent through all of these interrogations with him.
Now the fire's going, she's on there, tell me what you're doing now, or what you guys do. It's only 5:30 right now, what are you guys doing?
After we put the tires and the branches on, we went to the house and went in there for a little bit. And we went out, and he was going to take the Jeep down in the pit. So he did. And that's when we covered it with branches in the hood.
And that is exactly how Halbach's car is found.
Okay. That is all over the news. That is not information that the killer would only know. Those pictures are all over the place. And I am pretty sure that Brennan has been shown these pictures. Tell us how all this crap got covered up all over the car. How did all this stuff get there? When did you do that? Why did you do that? Who did that? Okay? Brennan is supposed to be sitting in the passenger seat of Teresa's car, riding down to the pit to leave it there and cover it up. Look at the front seat of her car, how it was found. There's shit all over the front seat, including Stephen Avery's blood dripped on things. Okay, now tell me, did Brendan sit on these things and not leave a damn bit of his own DNA, fingerprints, nothing at all in the vehicle? No, it didn't happen. I don't believe he sat on Aquafina bottles and perfume spritzer things and CD cases and, you know, whatever else is sitting in the front seat. Sorry, I don't believe he sat there. And then Stephen Avery dripped some blood all over that stuff and all over the passenger side door. No. Sorry. That didn't happen.
Dassey's confession, though, was presumed to be coerced because of the way the interrogators' questions were asked. Supposedly, because Dassey was so cognitively disabled, he could not withstand their verbal onslaught and had no choice but to tell them whatever they wanted to hear. How, then, did Dassey withstand cross-examination from hostile attorneys so well?
Okay, before we even hear this, you want to know how? Because he said he's not scared of them anymore. That's why. Because he understands that they're not there to help him like they said they were. They're not going to be there for him like they said they were. They're not on his side. They're there to hurt him. They're there to put him in prison. They're there to accuse him of crimes he didn't commit. And now he knows that. We're talking 2 years later. Yeah, he knows that now. And he's not afraid of them. And he's not going to lie for them. And they're not going to trick him into lying. He tells exactly the same truth. If you go and look at his written confessions, the ones he wrote out himself, He's telling exactly the same story he told 2 years before. He's telling it in court now. The exact same story. It hasn't changed. He didn't add any of their bullshit to it. He told the same story. This is what I did that day. This is what happened. And that's all it was. That's it.
Up the part that you raped her?
Yes.
You made up the part that she told you not to do it?
Yes.
To do the right thing?
Yes.
And to tell your uncle not to do it?
Yes.
You made that up?
Yes.
And you lied to the police?
Yes.
Are you lying? You're lying today?
No.
Dassey's ability to keep his composure on cross-examination was even noted by Teresa Halbach's brother, Mike.
I was just wondering if he was going to tell the truth or not. I didn't expect him to. I was hoping he would slip up a little bit.
But he didn't. Not once during the entire time he was being cross-examined, even though he wasn't smart enough to avoid falsely confessing to interrogators. On the witness stand, though, he becomes smart enough to even come up with a place he might have gotten such incredible details about Halbach's rape and murder.
All right, we're not going to go into the book just yet. As far as Mike Halbach, there's a really cool video clip of him in the documentary where he's talking about, and if you'll give me just a second, I will find it because somebody just posted this and I thought it was great. Of course, now I won't be able to find it. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know if this was going to come up here, but well, anyway, like I said, I probably won't be able to find it because it's sorry, I should just pause this while I'm looking for stuff. Yeah, okay, sorry, I can't find it, but anyway, the point is, Mike Halbach is giving an interview with the media after court one day, and he's talking about Brendan's confession. That basically what he's saying, since I don't have it in front of me to quote it, he is basically saying that all you gotta do is play the video confession of Brendan and there's our case right there. And the reporter asks him, well, have you seen the confession? And he says, no, I have not. And she rolls her eyes and was like, okay, I've lost interest in whatever the hell you've got to say, because how do you know that, Mike? How do you know that that's your case right there? If you played all of his interrogations, you would have no case. You would make it very clear to the jury and everybody else watching that shit is coerced. And I am going to read a piece of Brendan's psychological exam to you. This is in the summary. Basically, this is these tests are known as I cannot pronounce this, Good-Johnson suggestibility scales. I think that's how you say it. These scales measure two specific aspects of interrogative suggestibility. The two aspects of the scale are yield and shift. Yield is the extent to which the individual yields to leading questions, and shift is the extent to which the individual is prepared to shift their answers following negative feedback or interpersonal pressure. Okay? In Brendan Dassey's case, his scores were significantly elevated for both the yield and shift scores, again showing that he is significantly suggestible when presented with a situation that is comparable to a police interview regarding a crime scene. This is the summary. Brendan is somewhat intellectually limited, passive, anxious, avoidant, and reserved. If he is presented with leading questions during an interview and or presented with interrogative pressure, his personality, as shown by interview data, behavior during the police interview and interview by the present psychologist, research regarding adolescence and suggestibility, and current test data, is very susceptible to suggestibility. Yeah. So please, you have got to read all the information here, guy. Brendan did give in to the pressures by those very highly trained, trained detectives who were interrogating him. They went against their training, which, like I said, I'm going to go into a video later about how they went against the training that they were given to not lie to him, to not lead him on, to not make promises, things like that. They did every bit of that. Now he's sitting in court 2 years later, and he's not afraid of them. He knows that they're lying to him. He knows now that they can lie to him, and he's not going to give in to that pressure anymore. He is going to just tell the truth, basically just answer their questions with the truth and not let them push him anymore. Yeah, remember, he's now 17. He's not 16 anymore. He's 17, almost 18 by this time. So yeah, he's definitely gotten some more intelligence and definitely some more education on what happened to him, what was done to him. Yeah, so. Oh, as far as the book, I think it's funny. You keep calling him dumb. How he's read this book, Kiss the Girls, and that's where he got ideas like this. I have not personally read this book, but I've heard that a combination of the book and the movie is these things happen. These things are in those two, in the book and the movie. So yeah, I can see how that could have influenced some of the things that he was able to invent and guess and create in his head.
I could have got it out of books.
Out of books?
Yeah.
What book that you read ever had the story of a woman chained to a bed, raped, stabbed, and then her body thrown on a fire? What book was that, sir?
I believe it was called Kiss the Girls.
Dassey read that, all 464 pages of it, and remembered intricate details so well that he was able to apply them to a rape and murder he made up, even though he only reads at a 4th grade level and is severely learning disabled.
All right, Mr. Guy, apparently... Excuse me. Anyway, apparently you don't know that just because someone is on a low reading level doesn't mean that they don't like to read, doesn't mean that they don't try to read above 4th grade material. I know that personally, someone who works with autistic children who tells me that they don't necessarily understand all of the words that they're reading, but they still are able to kind of paint a picture in their head and get an idea of what is happening in this book. And they do like to read above their reading level, what they can really understand. And if you have ever read, I'm not a huge reader, but if you have ever read a book, you know, yeah, I'm sure that you could probably remember. If I understand correctly, that book came out the same year. So, you know, I don't know. Might have been a new book. But yeah, I don't think it's something that he read like when he was in 2nd grade or something. You know what I mean? It was something that he had read fairly recently. So those things would have been sort of fresh in his mind. But I can remember books from whenever I was a kid that I read. I remember parts of them. I definitely remember books that I read years ago, you know, a few years ago, especially parts of them, you know. You keep acting like he's just some kind of idiot who has no memory, who has no imagination, who is not capable of thinking for himself or making up things to give someone what they want to hear. Yeah, if I give you a piece of information, handcuffs, bedroom, naked, tied up, what are you gonna say? Can you think of a story of what would be done to a naked, tied up person with handcuffs? What you might do to them? I mean, it isn't that hard, and this is information that they would have given him to fill in the blanks and just say that this happened, Brendan. That's all we need you to do. Just say that this happened, even though they had no evidence at the time that it happened. They had pieces of things, and they wanted him to make him a picture. And of course, as they learned, all right, this is not great information here, so we need to kind of get you to make it better. Let's tweak it a little bit. And that's kind of, I think, even one of the words that they used, that they need to tweak a little bit.
Making retention and recollection of materials very difficult. Okay then. Unlike Making a Murderer viewers, though, jurors did see Dassey's confession and came to what can only be described as a logical conclusion.
As to count one, we, the jury, find the defendant Brendan R. Dassey guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as party to a crime. As to count two, we, the jury, find the defendant Brendan R. Dassey guilty of mutilating a corpse as party to a crime. As to count three, we, the jury, find the defendant Brendan R. Dassey guilty of second-degree sexual assault as party to a crime on October 31st, 2005.
The day that Brendan R. Dassey and Stephen A. Avery ended an innocent woman's life, but began trying to convince the world that they were the real victims.
I love how Brendan was convicted of rape, sexual assault, just based on his confession, when there is absolutely zero, there's negative evidence that ever happened. So tell me how that happens. How does a jury convict on something that they can't prove? They're taking what they should have seen as a very coerced statement. And I do question and wonder how much of that interrogation they were shown. Were they shown the previous interrogation videos? Doubt it. I doubt it, because when they bring him in on March 1st, and I think this is the only one that they were shown, they bring him in on March 1st, this is where they're tweaking all the previous stories, all the previous statements. This is going to be their main confession video that's shown to a jury, and they know that when they bring him in. They know what they're doing when they're bringing him in here. They've got to get that story. Let's make it more believable. Let's make it more solid. Let's tweak it so it's right, and just give one solid picture of what's going on. Now, if they would have been shown all the previous ones leading up to that, it would be a lot more obvious to a jury. And it's unfortunate that they weren't shown those things. I don't know why they weren't. But yeah, you know, if all I heard was what was said in the media and possibly shown in court, I don't know how I would have voted if I was on the jury. I don't know. I'm more the kind of person that likes to question things, but I still have to feel like even if all I ever would have seen was the interrogation video from March 1st, I still would have seen some coercion there, still would have seen some leading questions and pressuring and, you know, feeding of information. Because that is how I started. I started off watching Making a Murderer, and that's the interrogation that you are really shown in that documentary. And I know that immediately I felt that way as soon as I started watching that, those portions of the video. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would have bought it. I don't think I would have. But that's me, you know. I don't live there. I don't watch the news. All the nonsense that was spread all over the media and stuff that they were fed. I mean, I'm not going to blame them because it's not their fault. That's what they were fed, and they reported it. God, that one reporter in the documentary, murder's hot. Murder. We want to be the first ones to get this big, hot murder story. And she's talking about it and smiling like it's like, this is all about ratings and this is cool and stuff. Hey, somebody was murdered. And 2 people are going to prison forever for this murder. And if you take some time to look into this, you will see that way too much is wrong here. Way too much needs to be questioned. Way too much to be taking away the freedom of 2 people with all those questions and all that misconduct and all that nonsense going on. I'm sorry, but the state did a very good job, but they still did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt to me or anyone else that saw this that was not influenced by all the previous media coverage that tainted the jury pool. Anyway, so we're going to go on to episode 10.